It is second lesson of week 5. We lost previous lesson, so this is why it was a little bit quicker. I posted assignment 2, and it is exactly as we discussed it before, and I will quickly go over this description and provide more information if you ask. Dependency injection with Hilt was advertised at the previous lesson, but we didn't start it. Example of stack data has 2 variants, the way how Google does it in the course I'm referring to, and branch using Hilt. And I'm explaining Hilt because Google itself recommends using Hilt. So for this reason, it was short learning. It is last lesson in Android development using Kotlin, so Hilt is Kotlin technology. There's no other chance you can learn it in other course because it's a Kotlin technology. Okay, so this is why there is an introduction to using Hilt, and we will use it in almost all examples starting today. Although Google continues using brute force dependency injection, like doing this manually, perhaps the person who wrote the course thought that maybe it has a less learning curve, but they will probably assume that developers will learn Hilt later, but since it's last course in Android development using Kotlin, we learn Hilt here. And we will do it by comparison of their code to their way of doing it to recommended way of doing it from Google. So this example, for this reason, exists in 2 variants, so we can compare. Our product list, it is a rewritten example from the chapter that is dealing with the databases. I don't plan to explain every line of the code. I will explain only the database part, since this is a topic for today and previous lesson. GUI is extremely tedious and a lot. So this is why it's kind of just wider. It's not deeper in any sense. So for this reason, I will just will skip GUI, and I'll briefly talk about database part and Hilt dependency injection part. They have a similar example in the chapter related to databases, and we will download this and quickly go through of that. This is the same, looking at database part and somewhat GUI. This is just variant using Hilt, and it is rewritten in some sense that I suspect it is easier to explain, but since I'm not explaining GUI of this part, maybe it doesn't matter. But where it is useful for copy-pasting libraries part, because every project comes with TOMML file and 2 build Gradle files, and it is not, those files are not always editable through GUI because some pieces needs to be typed or copy-pasted. Since your assignment is in the same area, you can copy-paste this either from product list or mass trainer. Today I will explain mass trainer with database, so I rewrote it using database now. Or this does not have navigation, so you cannot really copy-paste entire piece because stack data doesn't have a pages, it has only 1 page. So in your assignment, you are asked to deal with pages, and this is the reason why I provide 2 more examples with pages using Hilt, and there is also 1 example from Google directly without Hilt. A warning for you about assignment, because the programs that do have GUI and multiple pages, they have quite large GUI code. There's no such thing as short GUI code, because it's in any languages what you use, it will be large. Because it's the nature of GUI, you have to specify everything that is on the screen. So for this reason, please devote significant time to it, to your assignment, and it is definitely a lot shorter than these examples because you have limited time. You can add any feature what you like, but add it after you made it work. And use version control system. So if you accidentally add feature and if you add feature and accidentally break so it doesn't work, you can always go back. So for this reason, make it minimal and use version control system, add features incrementally. So keep it experimenting, but make sure that some version is working, so you can always roll back to submit something working. Because if you submit code that is crashing, it is extremely low grade. Extremely, like below 30%. So don't go with that. So what is assignment? Assignment 2, so please invest time into it. I already mentioned that I rewrote mass trainer example that is using databases, and now it has more than one page. Previously it was one page, right? And directly based it on the example from Google that was word guessing game. And I didn't like it because I couldn't guess any words, so it was just kind of too much for me. So I rewrote it to simple math, and if it is overwhelming, just use calculator if you want. Okay? So, but calculator will not help with word guessing, right? Also, calculator example has a mass trainer example has lots of potential in terms of, okay, let's add databases, let's add pages, but word guessing game does not have such opportunity to add multiple things, and it will grow. So invest time into going through it and looking up what it's doing, because I will keep reusing it, and later we will have an example that gets problem data from web. I will put server on web that is sending this problem. So it's so later we will learn how to retrieve data from web, so it will be example for that. Later we will learn how to use cloud, so it will store your quizzes on cloud. So hopefully I will do that if time permitting. But this example of mass trainer has lots of opportunities to grow, unlike some other examples that doesn't make sense. So in terms of extending it. Speaking about assignment 2, assignment 2 also has opportunities to grow. And you will have assignment 4 similar way, but storing data on cloud. So invest time into GUI so you can reuse your GUI. For that, you will have to write additional GUI for that assignment 4, because if you store data on cloud, you need some kind of user authentication for it. So authentication, authorization. So essentially, you need some kind of login, because if you store data on a server, you need to, this data should be unique to you, right? So that part will be extra GUI that you will need to write, and definitely you need to rewrite data access layer, because in assignment 4, your data will be on cloud. Okay, so in assignment 4, you will have a similar problem, maybe with some extra bells and whistles, because later you will be more proficient in programming. Maybe you'll, let's say, a little bit more GUI requirements than existing one. But I promise you can reuse most of the GUI. So invest time into doing GUI for that, definitely. Because in assignment 4, you can reuse it to a lot of degrees. So what it is, as previously described in as the previous lesson, it's a shopping list app. Can go extremely complicated, but it is the simplest possible requirement that can make sense for shopping list. So it is one list, not multiple lists, for simplicity. Because when you use multiple shopping lists, could make sense, obviously. Shopping list for today, shopping list for tomorrow. In this case, you will have to have two database tables. One table for lists and one table for items, and you will have a relationship between them. Cool, but don't do it right away because it's far, far more complicated. By far, far more complicated. So in assignment, it is just one list. So you have one table. Okay? If you want to experiment, cool, create another branch of your code for that. Okay? But make it work the required way. After this, if you have time, experiment. Okay? Don't make such mistakes. Like everyone does such mistakes once in a while. Try to make it perfect right away and get stuck with perfecting a little piece. No time to do other things. All right? So make it work. So every list item should have a title, quantity, like some quantity line. You can do it as a string or number. It's up to you to decide. Title is obviously string. Quantity, it's up to you. How you store it, either string or number. Because it potentially, quantity could be, either way it makes sense. Yeah, it's like 2 packages, for example, right? Or 3 pounds. So you need to write something in addition to that. So, okay, so how you store quantity, it's up to you. It doesn't have to be number. So essentially 2 fields, and one more, obviously Boolean status, done, not done. Okay, because we need to, if this is a shopping list, you need to have some kind of check mark option. So when you go to the store, okay, this is done, you click it done. This is done, click it done. Right? So three data fields: title, quantity, and done, not done. Okay. Obviously, user should be able to add items to the list, delete any item. In terms of editing, only requirement to make status change, done, not done. You can add additional, it's fine. If you want to edit title, edit quantity, cool. It's extra, no extra credit, but it's definitely extra coding. Okay? So just to keep it shorter, only field that is editable is done status. Because this is essential feature when we go with the shopping list, we need to have done, not done change, right? So this status is editable. Title and quantity, it's up to you if you want to make it editable. It is definitely extra time to do it, right? Okay. Also, all the shopping list data including done status, should be stored in local database using room. Obviously, when you close up, open up, it should remember the shopping list, and this is easiest ways to do it is to store in local database, because cloud database is more complicated. So it is in local database, and it should also remember done, not done status. Also, it has to go into database, probably another column in the table, right? Boolean column in the table. Also, user should be able to add items logically, right? It's essential. And delete any item, not just the last one. Because stack example is deleting last one, it's more complicated, actually. Because you need to figure out which was last in the table. In this case, any item that you select, for example, you go to details and you see delete that item there. Okay? So, next. Should have 2 pages at least, list and details. So you have a list of items, you click on it, you go to details, on the details you can delete it or change status. Like done, not done. As an option, you can change status in both ways. From a list, directly you click on check mark something on an item, or some other switch or implementation. It's up to you how you do it, but you need to make status like done, not done, editable. So user, when you go with shopping list, you can just click on it, yeah, done, 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 done. Okay? Make, requirement also list and details, so you show that you know how to deal with list and details navigation using navigation system of Android. For Compose, because there are other things for Compose, navigation system for Compose. You make it look reasonably pretty, don't invest too much time into it before you finish code. For first finish code, just make it, do not look broken, and when you have time, invest time into make it reasonably pretty. And I promise you, you can use most of the GUI in assignment 4. In assignment 4, data will be stored, requirement will be stored on cloud. Okay? So GUI will be nearly the same, maybe with some extra features, but you can reuse your design. Right? And only one field is editable, done, not done status. It is to save time, because you have limited time to do it. You have about 1 week to do. and Saturday. Right? So, no. 1 week and 3 days. 1 week and 3 days. And big warning. Looks simple, most likely will take longer than you think. Okay? So start early. So this is big warning, start early. Looks simple, most likely will take longer than you assume. Okay? So speaking about today example, you already saw mass trainer. Example with 1 page, I rewrote it with 2 pages. I made data stored in local database, so when we close it, it stores current state, because it is now database and database in a file, so close up, open up, you have the same stuff. Took between 6 and 12 hours for me. I didn't time it exactly, but by just estimate, I worked it like on 2 days, and it took about entire evening and almost half day on another day. So it is between 6 and 12 hours to do. But it has more features than in your assignment, definitely, far more features. But definitely, but I had more experience in coding that. Okay, so don't assume that it can be done in 1 evening, because it's not necessarily the case. And also don't assume that it can be done on 1 day. It's not necessarily the case. Okay? Because we tend to get stuck with something and it will take hours and hours. Maybe we'll need to take a break and return to this tomorrow or something like that. So consider doing this in small portions and start earlier. So if you get stuck, okay, close it. For now, think about it, return to this tomorrow with fresh head. So when you do not try to do it at night, because coding at night is absolute traps that don't go anywhere. When we code at night, we cannot work next day because we spent night on it. So it's not really helping. Don't code at night ever, because it's, how long is night? It's like 8 hours, not more, right? Like 7, 8 hours is night. You can do it at daytime. Just split it thoughtfully, right? So don't ever code at night ever, and it also kills another day if you do it at night. So it's not worth it at all. Okay? Any questions about assignment itself? Okay. So split it in small pieces, like start it earlier. Today you will have all theory how to do it. So it shouldn't be big issue, but although even with given examples, it might take longer. So don't postpone it, for sure. Right? So at the previous example, a previous lesson, I explained stack data in reasonable details. I didn't dive into small details of GUI because it is just tedious. It's not smart in any sense. What I explained is in all details is data access layer, data, some of the GUI, and view model, which belongs to GUI, how state is stored, how repositories are created without HILT dependency injection. So and I postponed HILT to this lesson. I briefly talked about HILT using this link, and it is for review of the system. System is quite fancy. It has lots of features and it's hard to learn all of them. In this course, we have a reasonable introduction to it in terms that you're familiar with it, and if you want to use more, you keep learning it. So we definitely do not cover all features of it. We'll just use it in simplest possible case as demos. And code with HILT is apparently shorter than without HILT. So it really makes sense. So at the previous lesson, we cloned stack data Android. I didn't touch it since previous lesson, so you don't have to reclone it if you didn't clone it, if you already have it on your laptop. Stack data. Now, if you didn't clone it, please clone it usual way. I will open it from hard drive because I assume that you did it in the previous lesson. And other things, we will reclone it because mass trainer was changed so much, it's hard to pull data changes, although it's possible to apply it, but most likely it won't work. So we will reclone it. Okay? So let's open stack data example. So stack data, Android in class. This one, in this example, contains main branch, and it also has using hilt branch. Main branch was explained at the previous lesson, and what we learned that in order to make it work, we had to create factories for view model. And this is what Google is doing in all examples from the course I'm referring to, this introductory course. It is a little blah, 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 copy-pastable, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, you need to create a code to what is factory? Factory is an object that creates other objects. Since view models are generated automatically when you ask for it, if it don't exist, you need to explain how to create it. So you create a factory with a specific method, create, that will be called by the system in order to create this object when necessary. Because view model function, when you call it, will create an object when it doesn't exist, view model, or it will find existing one. So it's not necessary using your factory each time, but it will use it at least once. When we use hilt dependency injection system, hilt creates factories, but you still have to explain how to create those objects. So in that case, factories are generated automatically under the hood, but you will still have to provide some explanation how to generate objects. Also, we learned that when we call, you see, a view model function, if we don't use dependency injection, we need to provide the factory. This is how it works. And referring to the factory to create view model. Okay. So this is kind of reference to, and since factory needs to refer to, since factory needs to refer to repository, and repository needs to refer to database, all this stuff should be stored somewhere. So for this reason, we created application class, stack data application that contains container that we store the stuff in it. Because in order to retrieve data, we created repository. In order to make this work, we created database object. All this stuff should be connected somehow, so we stored this in the container. This one. And container is created on create. This code is automatically generated when we use hilt. So this is simplification. All right? So this is quick overview. By the way, when we create application class, it has to be registered in manifest file, right, like here. Application name, and this is application class. If you don't do that, it will crash right away. It will say application class, blah, 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 no, do not match, something, something. And definitely all crashes in cat window, log cat window, you see cat, click on cat, you'll see. And if your program is crashing, this is a place to find, read carefully, most likely it will give a clue. Okay. Also, when you print something from your app into log, there is also a way to do log dot and I instance for info, log dot and other messages. So D for debug, all this stuff will show up here. So if you do log dot printout for your debugging purpose, it will show up here. It's a reminder. Okay. So next, questions about that? This lesson is video recorded. Video is online, linked to Slate. I spent 3 hours explaining it. So hopefully, if you need to review, it will be clear enough. And now I need to compare this code with Hilt and see the differences. Okay? So let's switch to Hilt. Using Hilt, remote, using Hilt, checkout. Okay. And I click on Git. I did multiple commits, but I wrapped them in one afterwards. There is option to do that with Hilt, just to compare to, because this way it will be easier to compare. Git provide option. Before you push, you can do that. You can start compress them into one. I forgot what's called. What is called? It is called squish, I believe. Squash, yes, squash. Okay, I use the squash feature to make it as one after the fact. It is useful in terms of reducing number of commits if you want to compact it later. And I did it just to compare, easy compare code that is without Hilt and Hilt code. Main is without Hilt, this is Hilt code. So let's see what we have. So those files are changed. I added more libraries, so lib version refer to Hilt libraries that I added. So first, let's look at this. Green means it was, blue means it was edited. Okay. Okay. This is just the same line. Okay. This was deleted. Lifecycle view model compose. And instead of it, I'm using view model compose for Hilt. Remember that in order to call view model function, we need to include lifecycle model compose. Otherwise, view model function is not available. If we want to call Hilt view model, that is similar, but using Hilt, we need to use different library function. So this is the reason why I deleted this part and I included this, and I included Hilt. Okay, and this is just the same. Okay. So this version is called Hilt view model function. Also, this is the same thing mentioned as a library, because at the top it was just version number. Now it is library name. So this is gone. When we use Hilt, we need to include Hilt Android and Hilt compiler, and this is a replacement of what was gone from Hilt, lifecycle view model compose. This stuff, this one in particular, cannot be added using dialog. Remember that dialog add dependency, project structure add dependency. This is not found by that dialog, so you really have to copy paste it from somewhere, either from documentation or from this example. Okay. So easiest way is just to copy paste it from compare and copy paste it from this. Okay. Because this part is not found from add dependency dialog. The same applies to part that is related to plugins. Plugins can be added only by copy-paste. Dialog add dependency does not do it at this moment in Android Studio. And so let's go to the bottom. Here it is, plugins. I have the same stuff, but I added Hilt Android plugin. How you call it, it's your choice, because this is your choice. But this is not. This is just version number. Define it at the top. Okay? So this is definitely not your choice, and it's not. You cannot add it through dialog. It's copy-pastable, either from documentation or from this code. Okay. After this, you edit two files, build Gradle, and in those files, you refer to this stuff, how it is called here. Except in those files, it will be lib.hild.android. So it will you will replace dashes with dots. So TOML file must match build Gradle files. If they don't, it will not synchronize. Okay? So be careful about copy-pasting. You can copy-paste from one project. You cannot mix copy-paste from two projects. For the reason that in another project, this could be called just differently because it's a choice of user how to call it, programmer how to call it. Okay? So you can copy-paste this definitely, but and this if you copy-paste from the same project. If you copy-paste from two, do not mix it. If you do, make sure that you, for example, this part is copy-pasted exactly the same way in TOML and in build Gradle files. Because this could be called typed differently. It's a choice of a programmer. But this is not. This is library name. Okay? So these are aliases, aliases, aliases. So let's keep comparing what is in libraries. Next change, it is two build Gradle files. One is global, one is local. So this is global one. And as you see, I added alias to Hild plugin. So it is plugin section in global files, alias to Hild plugin. Okay. Next, local, the same alias to Hild plugin is added. And in this section below, I removed library lifecycle view model compose, and I added, instead of that, lifecycle view Hild lifecycle view model compose. Okay, this part, similarly to this part, cannot be added through dialog. It has to be typed. This KSP and this is alias. GUI cannot create it. We have to type this part. What is KSP? Kotlin some symbol processor. Okay, it is necessary part to do a Hild and room. Previously, KSP is the replacement of capt. Capt is also Kotlin annotation processor something. So it is older way of doing it. So KSP is replacing it with capt. In the previous year, it was capt something. Now it is KSP. Okay. It is a similar system that's supposed to compile faster. Okay. It's a better version of it. And this is Hild and done. So this is with libraries. Definitely when you edit it, you need to synchronize it with this part. Also, referring to previous code, you know when you change library versions, version number to newer one, I already warned you, in rare occasions, not always, it may stop compiling. This is what happened. Not with this project, with another project. Because sometimes Google split libraries and they remove part of one library and create another library for that. So when you go to newer version of a library, piece that was in previous version, now it is a separate library. So when it happens, you have to add that library where it goes. All right. So this is a trap that may catch you at some point, because in older project it could be one library, in newer project it could be the same library with newer version, but in additional library because Google decided to split this library in two pieces. This happened to icons, and now, in order to include icons, you need to include special library with icons. It didn't happen to this project because it was done with, it was reviewed within a couple months. Right? Icon was split away well, probably a year ago, something like that. Questions about it? So be careful about upgrading versions. Just do it. Before doing that, definitely commit it so you can always roll back. Let's keep updating. See. You see data container is removed. Gray means it's gone. Because containers now are maintained by Hilt system, we don't need data container at all. It's gone. I created data module. Modules are special files for Hilt, the instructions how to create and link the objects. So it is more advanced than repositories because it's instruction for not just for data. Yeah, it's more flexible, say. So it's just because I'm using Hilt, I had to create module file in this case. And I decided to keep it simple, so I have only one. Later we will, later example for today, you will have two, actually probably three modules, because when it grows, you want to maintain a kind of separation of concerns, right? For your program, if piece of the code is about something else, you don't keep it in the same file, because yeah, let's stay organized. Don't mix different things together. So module, it's instruction for how to create objects for Hilt and link objects in Hilt, and this could be more than one file. When we go through the code, we will see that. I edited stack screen, and this is the screen because now I'm using not view model, I'm using Hilt view model. So let's do that. So now it is different import. And you see, previous code used factory. You see, view model, blah, 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 factory. And now it is Hilt view model without factory because this function is smarter. It knows how to connect pieces. Okay? So we don't need to deal with factories explicitly. We just call Hilt view model. If you type in view model instead of Hilt view model here, surprisingly it will work. Because this library assumes that when you type view model, it will call Hilt view model. If you include this library instead of this one, just use Hilt just to make it explicit so it's obvious what it is. Okay? So this is a change in GUI. Surprisingly, it's in this piece, it's only one change. I typed Hilt view model instead of view model. Next, a view model itself is also changed. Because now, see, there is no explicit factory, but we need to provide instruction how to connect repository to view model. Okay? So let's see what is there. I included Hilt view model because now there is instruction here for Hilt system that it is Hilt view model, so it is connected by Hilt. So this line is additional on top of view model. You see, it was just stack view model, now it is here. Okay? And for Hilt, you need to specify that parameters of the constructor are injected. So instead of saying just constructor without explicit keyword constructor here, we need to stick word inject in front of constructor to tell the Hilt that parameters are injected. So this is the change, inject word inject in front of the constructor for Hilt view model. And you see that there is no difference. So I'm comparing so you know how to port code that is not using Hilt into code that is using Hilt, okay? To know the differences, okay? And next, provider, app view model provider. App view model provider file previously contained factory. Explicit code for factory. Now factories are done under the hood by Hilt, so this file is gone. There is no provider, there's no factory, explicit one. Factories are created under the hood. So the gray means it's deleted. This file no longer exists. In main activity, I added Hilt Android entry point because I need to write Android entry point on top of activity. On GUI unit, like activity or fragment, we will not use fragments in this course, most likely. We need to write Android entry point on every activity or fragment that is using dependency injection with Hilt. So this is requirement. Otherwise, it won't work. If this is missed, it will crash when it starts. It says cannot inject, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And a last easy change. Remember that code that was done manually, stack data application, on crate of the application, initialize container, blah, 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 and this magic happens inside of the container by creating objects and connecting them. And this magic is manual, so we had to write code for it. And now it is just Hilt Android app on top of it, and this magic is done under the hood. So we don't need to write it. Okay. So this is obvious comparison, but definitely we had module files in addition to that. So we need to look into that module file. Okay. Questions so far? So you see, once we catch side-by-side comparison, since it's video recorded, you can review this later. We can take project from Google example that is not using Hilt and manually just flip it to Hilt. It is just a little bit careful editing. Okay? And since final code is shorter with Hilt compared to not using Hilt, there's no point of not using it. Okay? So this is why I'm using this starting now until the end. Okay? So let's go to that. I will close comparison because module file there's no point of comparing because in the previous version it didn't exist. It's all new. So let's open that module file and see. By the way, this entry is exactly the same. It has to be here with application. Application has to be mentioned in a manifest file. This happens in red because I flipped versions that use different libraries. After flipping versions of the code, branches of the code with different libraries, we need to synchronize because this may happen. Okay? Synchronize button, it is elephant, magic elephant. Okay? Why it is elephant? Because elephant, it's a logo of Gradle. Okay? See, now it is synchronized, so it's not in red. So typically happens when we flip branches that use different libraries. We need to synchronize project. Okay? Sometimes Android Studio goes nuts, and it happens. It happened to me yesterday. It just synchronize doesn't work. Okay? If it happens, you need to go File, Invalidate Caches. When you do so, it will restart your Android Studio. And it is somewhat slow. But you will see, if you type code, you're sure that it's right, it has to be right, or what was right now it shows as wrong, without any obvious change. It means it's totally out of sync, and synchronize button, if it doesn't work, you need to invalidate caches like temporary storage of it. This should resolve it. But the process is slow, and it requires restart of Android Studio. Okay? So it's another fix. If running on emulator somehow just won't go there, okay? No errors, but won't go into emulator. You need to wipe clean emulator. There is an option there. You need to stop emulator. Like this. And you see wipe data. Okay? If for some reason you run it, but no errors, but you cannot start it with emulator error, you need to wipe data there. It happens also. One of the reasons you push it lots of apps or lots and it runs it out of space, because device is limited in space. Virtual device is limited in space. So periodically I wipe data. It takes time. Okay? For example, when I grade your assignments, it can easily run out of space. So I wipe it up. So, because every student assignment is separate app. Okay? You may also run out of space or some data corrupted because the software is not perfect. So you need to wipe it up. Of course, when you wipe it up, it will be slow boot first time because it needs to reinitialize. Do it when you need it, essentially. All right? Questions about that? Now let's look at the module. This example is using one module for simplicity, and second example is using more than one. Okay? For separation of concerns, essentially, because it has different pieces, so let's keep it separate. So how you call it, it's up to you. If it is show instructions how to create objects, it says provides. So it's a function to create an object. It is object and something. So if it is provide, it is object. Okay. Module, make it module. Instruction, there are module for HILT and module for app. Module for app, it is compilation unit, word the same, but different meaning. You can split your project into, not for app. You can split your project to separate modules for organization purpose, like you have a database layer with separate module for compilation purpose. If it is large, so you can compile it separately. Or you can have even separate apps within the same project as separate modules. Some crazy Google examples do it. Separate different apps into the same project as separate modules. Don't do it, it just creates mess. But you may encounter this in some crazy old examples from Google. So module in the project, it is just a piece of the code. Module in HILT, it is instructions how to create and link objects. So if it is provides, it is instructions how to create objects, and it is given inside of an object. What is install in? Before linking objects, it needs to store them somewhere. And when we say install in singleton component, it means globally in the code. So it is scope, where to store this stuff before it is linked. Or temporarily ahead of the time before you link it somewhere. We're already familiar with this container concept. With doing this manually, we created global container. Right? Link it to application class because application class is global, so we link it to that container. HILT is doing similar thing under the hood. So it needs to store those objects somewhere before they link it. So this means do it globally, and it is the easiest way to do it. This can be refined in the larger projects for optimization. So there are different scopes. And I'm not doing that. Okay? So for larger projects, it could make sense to have a smaller scope for optimization. Okay? Or other fancy stuff. Okay? So in this course, I'm sticking to global objects. Because we don't have many, there's no point to do fancy things. So this is the scope of those objects. What singleton here means? This is not the same singleton. This means you will have only one object of this kind. So it will not create new one. It will reuse existing. So please notice that this gray, 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 typically for Android Studio, gray means it's not used. It means Android Studio still doesn't understand it. It is used. Don't delete it. Okay? And this is, again, that's the fact that it is gray. If you save delete, okay, if you save delete it, it's probably deleted, but it's not safe. It's Android Studio does understand hill dependency injection, but not 100%. Okay? Sometimes this will clean it up and make it like it's used. Not always helps, but make sure that you remember that sometimes hill stuff shown in Android Studio in gray, and gray means not used, but it's actually used. Okay? It means Android Studio is still fighting with improvements, okay? Necessary improvements. These icons is support from Android Studio for health. So this is, all right? So what is this? Context consumes, provide context. So this is a place where it's coming from. Okay? This is what it says. Provides, it means where it goes. Okay? So those instructions are linked together, but you need to provide all information. So you provide instructions how to create objects, and Hilt will figure out how to link them. It will create dependency graph under the hood and figure out the logic of linking them. If you write code yourself, you need to figure out your logic and just write code to link them. For the Hilt, you provide instructions how to create each object, and it will link them together based on dependency graph that it builds. Okay? So what is this instruction? Okay? Application context. Remember that get database function from item database needs application context. Application context is given to Hilt by the system, so it knows how to pull it. We need to specify that it is application context because there are other contexts in the system. Context, it's a base class for many items in the app, like, for example, activity. You know, activity is going out of life cycle when you rotate the screen. So you shouldn't lose connection. You should lose database or connection to database based on rotation of the screen. So it has to be application class because application context linked to the database. Okay. And application context is only one, so it's also useful in this sense. So this is injected, and this is where it goes. So it provides database object, right? Item database. Where does it go? Here it is. You see, in order to create item DAO, we take database object and we return item DAO. DAO data access object. Okay. So where it goes? It goes here as a parameter of provide item repository. It doesn't have to be ordered this way. You just provide instructions and Hilt will link them together. Okay? Where it goes? Here, and this is how to create item repository call. This is interface, so we need to link interface to implementation somehow. The easiest way is to do it inside of object with provides, but there is a fancier way. We will see it in separate example coming next today. So I just call implementation, and on DAO, this. Okay. Now, where does it go? A repository goes to several places because, in this case, it's only one. Where it goes here. Inject into stack view model. right? So Android Studio shows actually where it goes. Sometimes it doesn't show. You need to synchronize object by clicking synchronize project by clicking elephant button. So repository goes here into Hilt view model. You can go back to see where it's coming from. It's coming from here. See? So Android Studio provides some support to Hilt, but unfortunately it's not 100%. It shows links, how those are connected, but sometimes it shows this in gray because its understanding is not 100% from Android Studio. Don't delete them. Okay? So where does it go? It goes here, a repository, and Hilt view model itself. You see, it doesn't show where it goes, but it definitely goes, and you saw where it goes. It goes into Hilt view model function call. So there's no link where it goes from here. And this is how to create not just Hilt view model. This will create any object injectable this way. So Hilt view models must be marked with add Hilt view model. But if you want to make just your own object injectable, you write inject in front of constructor. Make sure that this is injectable as well. Today we will have example for that. Okay? So for view models, you have to write Hilt view model because it is instruction for Hilt view model function. Okay. For other injectable objects that you want to create yourself, you just write inject in front of constructor here and call it, it works. It makes it injectable. All right. So this is how it relates to code without Hilt. Now it is with Hilt. Any questions? Yeah, hopefully, since it's video recorded, you can refer to this later. I tend to video record these things because code is changing, because of library is changing. So there's no point of writing this up because it's somewhat different. But understanding it once helps to understand it next year or year after. Although something could be, some small changes should appear because they improve libraries, idea stays the same. Hilt is around for probably 5-6 years already. Yeah, about 5-6 years. Ideas stay the same. They rename it some instructions, but mostly it is the same. No. Most likely it will stay the same up to, definitely up to the end of the course. And later when you use it maybe in your final project, what's called a project, capstone project, you will have to stay current because capstone project in 3 years from now, right? Some things could change. So if you want to use it in Kotlin and Android, definitely stay current because, or invest some review time before. Because many things could change, but not so drastically that you have to relearn it. Just be ready to surprises. Okay. Okay. So this is a comparison. If there's no questions at this moment, let's clone example. Mass trainer probably. Stack data is done. This is way longer. So next step in complexity is inside of mass trainer. So let's open that. Because this is a version of Google example, and that is quite long. I plan to cover this to some degree. It is quite long in terms of lots of tons of GUI, because many screens, many editable features. So it is just light. It's not deep. So let's open mass trainer, and in this case, please reclone it, because at the I made drastic changes of it, although I committed to the same path. So maybe it is safer just to reclone than pooling differences. Okay, so say copy URL and I will clone it. I will close this one. Then clone repository. I want to go this to projects, this section. Command V, and I want to create folder for it. Clone, okay. This is definitely longer logic than in your assignment because it has fancy and more choices in navigation, you will see. And it also has some math logic inside of it. So to stay, and I also wanted to stay reasonably consistent to previous code. But it took for me between 6 and 12 hours to do this step. So it's this big warning about assignment, do not postpone it. Although it's probably won't take that long, or maybe take that long. Just split it into small pieces. If you feel stuck, just postpone it to next day, but do not start late. Okay, just work till it works. And if you feel stuck, just, okay, let's continue later. Okay? You will not have this option if you start on last day. So first, let's run it to see what is this version main now is using Hilt and already database because I merged new branch to main. I have a previous code is now inside of no database. We had no GUI option, so this one no GUI. It is the first code. Then no database, it is with GUI without database. And now we have main contains Hilt and database. I tried to do originally, thought maybe I will do without Hilt version and with Hilt, and decided no point because we already have one example that compares to. So this is already using Hilt. So let's run it. So we know what to anticipate in the code. And after this, we'll go through the code. I will explain database part in details because it's new. GUI in reasonable details because navigation is new. So I'll explain that one. Most of the GUI is the one which is just brute force or just tedious. I will just say, okay, look it up in the code. It's not smart in any sense, it's just tedious typing. So now I have multiple screens. And it starts with home screen. Okay. Since it's demo, I mark it screens on the top so it's clear what it is. In real life scenario, when you run up, it will not be called home. It will be some just assumption that it's home, first screen. And score. It is current score. Since it's generating 5 problems, I decided to keep it short. It is just a hard-coded number in one place, actually 2 places. Later, when we learn how to deal with settings of user settings, I will add screen where there is a selection number of problems. So it will be some part of how to deal and store user settings. Okay. So now 5, it is just hard-coded number. Find this number, change it to 10, and it will work for 10. It's not that big deal. Now, navigation to first item, navigation to list all items, and create new problems. Okay. So it will problems are randomly generated, so this will replace existing problems with new one. Okay, so list problems will give you list and score here, and this is linked back to home screen. This looks like a toolbar, but it's not. I just created a row with 2 items on it. Okay, so this is scrollable. If a number of items is bigger, you replace this number to 10. You will see this goes below. This will go below that because only this portion is scrollable. This is not. Okay, and how did I achieve it? There is a option in modifier weight. Weight, it is how much it is stretching. By default, it is 0. It's not stretching. If you have items in the column or row, you can specify weight, and this will be relative stretchability of that piece. Okay. So if you have 2 items, you specify weight weight 1 and weight 1 on each of them, it will take equal size. If you specify weight 2 and weight 1, first will stretch twice more than the second one. Okay. It doesn't have to add up to 1. It is relative weight. So it is stretchability. Okay. So I specified weight for this one, but I didn't specify weight for this. It is 0 by default. So it stretches this as much as possible because 1 is far bigger than 0. Okay? This is how I got this for everything except that. Okay? So this is done with weight. It is modifier.weight option. Modifier.weight option applies to column because I had this inside of a column. First item and second item inside of column. No, actually it's 3 items. This is also item in the column, this horizontal line. And this. This weight is default 0, this weight is default 0. This is why these 2 don't stretch. But this weight was 1. And weight applies to row, the same logic. Okay. When I go to here, I didn't specify any weight here because there's no point. Okay? So it is 0 by default. Okay, let's, if we go to list here, and these items are clickable. So in your assignment, I'm asking you to create list and details. So the same logic. Click on that, goes to details. But in your case, details will be less fancy because it will be probably only one flip, done, not done, either by check mark or by switch box, right? Done, not done, and perhaps option to edit title or something like that. You need to add a screen to add item somehow. So you will need either dialog or some screen to add new items. Or you can combine it somehow, plus button, add item, the same as details. So think about it, what is simpler for you, work with this way. You can have a separate screen for add item, fine, or just combine it with details and save button, something like that. You can have the same screen, but definitely you need to have a separate button to add it because it's different option. A click on item is not the same as add new item, right? So you need to have a button to edit. So now you are here, and there is a navigation buttons, right? To next or previous one. I click it 4, now it is 4. When I go to next, this goes disabled, and because it is last one. Okay? Definitely you don't need that one unless you really want to. Okay? Because technically, if you want to go through shopping list, maybe you do next, next, next if you want. This is just an option that you may consider, but you don't have to. Okay? This is previous one, and when I reach 1, this is going disabled. It's logic inside of a GUI. I compare problem number with 1, obviously. If it is more than 1, this is enabled. Right? And this is enabled when it is less than problem count. Problem number is less than problem count. This is enabled. This is total score, and I created separate view model for it because it's this different logic. I thought initially how to combine it in the same view model, and later I realized that if I put it in the same view model, I have it on different screens, I will have duplication of the code, which is not a good idea because it was the same code in 2 different places or 3 different places. Okay? Because I have a score on every screen, I decided in order to avoid duplication of the code for every screen, I created separate view model. So now my screens have 2 view models, specific logic and this logic, okay. To avoid code duplication. You can have more than 1 view model per screen. There is no crime into it. It's not always useful, but in this case, it looks like. Right? Now, so this is also navigation here. And I'm showing how to use navigation bar if you want to. In your assignment, you can have a navigation bar to list, for example, or to specific item or whatever else, home screen, if you want to. Okay, and this takes you to list. This back to home. This goes to specific item. When you go here, this is taking you to the first item. See, taking you to the first item. Remember that when we navigate, we can pop stack, right? In this case, I didn't pop stack. I just do it navigate, navigate, navigate. It is design decision of a programmer how to deal with navigation. And sometimes we do need to pop stack. In this case, probably popping stack makes sense if you create new quiz. I didn't think about it yet, so perhaps it makes sense because this way, you will not see exactly the same stuff if you go back. So probably popping stack when you create new quiz makes sense. I didn't think through yet. And this button back works with popping stack. So it is indeed previous place where you go. Because navigation, with navigate, add items to navigation stack. Adding items to navigation stack makes sense only if you store the data. Otherwise, what is the point of going back if you see a different thing? Okay? So in the previous example, when we didn't store data, going back made only sense within one step, right? And I did it with popping stack. In this case, since data is stored for everything, it goes to previous step, actually. In most cases, unless it is already edited data. In this case, you see edited data. So going back, you see it goes to problem 3. This is where I was. Going back goes to list. So this is going back in the navigation stack. This goes, since I was in problem 1 before. This, I was in problem 2, 3. This is how I was navigating. Yeah, if you think this is too much, you can implement pop stack in some places, so it does not accumulate this one. Okay. Now, it was in problem list, and I was here. Okay. This is probably last one. And if you go back here, no, it wasn't last. I was doing lots of things. And now, when you're at last one, it takes you out of the program. So this, back button provided by operating system is popping stack of the application. In my code, currently, I'm not doing that. I call navigate, navigate, navigate to build the stack. Maybe it's not the best choice. You already saw how to pop stack in paper scissors, so you can do that inside of your app when you need it. There are more options to pop stack when you do navigate. You can navigate with popping stack. There are combinations. So you can navigate and pop stack at the same time when you do navigation. So there are multiple choices. I decided to keep it simple for now. Let's start it again. Definitely, it has editing feature. this will reload the quiz, and editing feature is changing status. Okay? In your status, you change done, not done by flipping with check mark. In this case, it's more of the status, but this status is stored as just user answer. Okay? So I click on number 4, and this is obvious 10, right? And I submit, and now it says right answer. It does not delete when it is right. If it is not right, this is feature, not a bug. Okay, this is how I wrote it. If it's not right, it is still storing in the database, but it's not displaying it. This is how I made it. So now if I go to the list, I see this is right answer. This, if it is wrong, okay, not answered, now it is wrong answer, so it does not display it. Again, it's not a bug, it's a feature. This is how I wrote it. It does not display what you type it if it is wrong, because what's the point? And it does go to database, because this is how it knows it's wrong. It's comparing it. There is no status in the database, status of the answer. I decided, okay, we could make it, but I didn't store status. It just figured it out by comparing right or wrong. Okay. Now if you go to list, you see right answer, wrong answer. So this way you can make it, say, done, not done message. So you can do it directly by something, something, done. Something, something, not done. Okay? So this will be easiest way. A fancier way is to include check mark here. And logic is similar to on-click navigation. So you do on-click navigation on-click, but also if you do on-click on checkbox, it will not propagate outside of the checkbox. So in this case, you can do two on-clicks if you want to change status by clicking checkbox. This logic is in my list product list problem. In that problem, items are checkable by checkbox here. Google example with the database does not have checkbox in it. So what is the database? Now it is 9:30. Let's have a break. We started at 8, right? So it's almost not 9:30, it's 9:20. So let's have a break, and after this we'll look into database of it, okay? So I will stop recording. Okay. So restarting after break, and now let's look inside of database or data access layer. In order to see content of the database, we need to click on some magic button here, so let's find it. It is app inspection, Your project should run in order to see it, so it has to be running. Then these are internal logic table, and this is the tables that you create. If you have more than one, it will be more than one entry. So I click it on that. Maybe I need to double click. Okay, let's do double click. And I see content of it. So when you debug, you need to definitely have an option to look at, otherwise it will be harder to debug. This is what I store in the table. First, it is ID of an item, and I decided not to make it auto-increment. So it is, when I create the quiz, I do counter for those problems, and it makes it unique. And I do not delete them randomly. It's only wipe off and recreate it again. In this case, I can afford to having not auto-incremented ID. In your case, you should have auto-incremented ID because you have items deletable and added. You delete items and add items. So when you set up your database, do it auto-increment of ID, similar to how it is done in stack data, how it is done in list example. In this case, it is more straightforward logic if it is not auto-incremented, because when I I insert all items at once, and I delete them at once, and I insert them again at once. I don't need auto-increment ID because before inserting all of them, I wipe off everything. So in this case, auto-increment just doesn't make sense, doesn't add anything. In case if you delete random items, auto-increment really helps, because this way it will store internal counter so you will never run into conflicts of IDs. Okay. So it is ID. In this case, it's not auto-increment. First number, first number, operation. Operation looks like a strange number, and this is actually character, plus, minus, division. Okay. So, and last number and user answer. I do not store status. Status is calculated. I decided, okay, let's store it, and I decided later probably it is just duplication of this data. So currently it is recalculating status based on user answer. So it has to store wrong answers as well. So this was wrong answer in order to know it's wrong. A not answer, it is just no. So when you store data inside of a room, room it is object-oriented access, relational object-oriented mapping to SQL. You need to create an object that is matching rows. This way you can describe a table by creating objects that match rows. It is not the same, necessarily the same object that you use to define business logic. And in most cases, it's not, because the way how you store it is not necessarily how you want to use it. So I decided to create an object for a row, and since it is different object, I call it local problem. So local means store it locally, not coming from a server. In newer future versions, when we load data from a server, like quiz data, it will be another problem that is matching data coming from the server. So in this case, local means in the database. So please notice this is primary key, but not auto-increment, because it makes it easier internally in my problem, because I don't need auto-increment. I just create a list, I inserted list. I wipe it off, inserted new list. And I created this counter by just creating list itself. First, integer. Operation I stored as a character. So the in database decided to store it as a number, because like probably ASCII code for the character. And second number in user answer, nullable. This means nullable. Okay? And this is table name, shows table name. Okay? So this is the first you need to define entity. It is rows of your table. You can have more than one entity, but in this case, simple case scenario, it's only one. Next, next step it is to define DAO. DAO, it is data access objects. This is operations that you need to do on the database for your logic. First, I need to have this, and I'm getting this as a flow of list of problems. And this is a query how to get it. Select all from user problems and expect that. Compiler is smart enough to generate code, but you need to describe it, what you want. Okay? So it's a description. I need a flow of lists of local problems created this way. Select all from user problems table. Next. Get local problem flow by ID. Because when I click on it, and this is received as a flow as automatic update, potentially. So this is also flow. But problem by ID could be nullable, because it is by ID. If ID doesn't exist, it can be null. Hopefully it will never happen because I try to stay consistent. Okay. When it may happen? It may happen when you generate generate quiz with different problem number. And you do back button, and you eventually reach point, your quiz has 5 problems, previous quiz has 10 problems. So potentially you can run into this situation, but not in this case, because it's fixed at number 5. Okay? So potentially it could be an issue if you have to deal with different problem numbers and quizzes and run into the situation with back button. Okay? In this case, it will be just some default one default data, because when you create user model, when you create view model, you have to specify default data. In this case, it will be 1 + 2 program. It's not an error message. We will have. I decided to keep it simple, and just because number of problems is fixed, this situation doesn't arise. Okay, when we will have quizzes, number of problems in the quiz is selectable, that part has to be fixed. So you will not run into the situation like back button runs into problems that doesn't exist. Okay. This is delete all local problems, and this is suspend, and this is suspend. Why suspend? Because in order to do it, it needs time. In order to get flow, doesn't have time. Doesn't need time, because initially it's flow. After this, it will execute problem, and it will insert something into flow. Flow comes empty first, and it is just empty object, and next it is inserted. All operations that need to have time to execute has to be suspend. So delete all local problems, delete this query, then insert local problems from the list. You can do it from one or from the list, in this case from the list. In your case, you do it from one, similarly to stack data. And transaction, empty, delete all, and insert the list. So it is combination of 2. So this is what I use to create new list. Wipe it off and insert new one. And count problems, also query, and it is suspend. At some point, I need to know it's empty or not, because if this problem, this app has to initialize database when it starts. So you already have some quiz to show. And so this is how it will figure out if it's empty or not. It will just run count on the database table, and if it counts more than 0, it means there is something there, cool. Otherwise, it will call insert local problems and not query random list for it. So count is necessary for that. Questions? So DAO is description of what you want. And after creating these two, I need to create database object, mass trainer database. So when you do it, you do database, and you specify entries and entities, and you separate entities what you have. In this case, it's only one entity in the array. A version, it is for version of the database, not version of the program. I described it at the previous lesson. This is always false. There is no point of having true. And at the previous lesson, I told that it could be function or could be properties. It doesn't matter. In this case, I use function just to show you can use function. If you use function, you have to call it as function. If you use property, you call it as a property with just dot, without parentheses. That gives DAO. If you have more than DAO, you just list more than one. You will have more than one item. It will work. At this part, if you use Hilt can do it for you. But you will have to copy-paste it into module. This part has to be copy-pasted into module. Or you can just do it this way and call this function inside of the module. So there are two options. So I decided to stay compatible with code without HILT at this moment. But if you use HILT, you can do it somewhat shorter. But this code must be inside of a module. As it is shown in a product list example. Okay. I explained this code before. It is copy-paste just with renaming. I explained this at the previous lesson. Okay. So now I create database module for initialization of the objects. Now I have several modules. So the same to create database, like it was in the previous example. It is copy-paste with renaming, and copy-paste with renaming to create DAO. Okay. There is no entry for repository because now repository is in separate module. Okay. To show that you can deal with repository different way. Questions? Now let's look at repository. Okay. In order to create repositories, we need factories. Because, do we need? No, we don't. Let's look at repository. There is a factory, but this factory is not for view model. This factory is just to create problems itself. So this is unavoidable. HILT cannot do logic for creating problems for you. Right? But this, it is code to create factory. Okay. So here it is, a factory for the problem. A repository. So I describe it interface what I want. But please notice that return values types are different from DAO. Because local problem, it is how I store it in database table, those described rows. This is my business logic problem. Okay? And it doesn't have to be exactly the same way, because in order to implement business logic, you put extra logic there. So the way how you want it from the repository is not the same as how you store it on the hard drive in the database. So for this reason, repository does extra work of conversion of the data between how it is stored and how it gets to you. Because it can be stored different way. On the cloud, it's with different object. In the database, also different object. So data storage object is not the same as business logic object. In this case, repository is returning business logic objects, you see? So there is a conversion in the repository. Okay. So what is repository module? Because this is the implementation of the repository. This is interface. So previously, it was a link between interface and implementation, and object, it's database object. You can do it without creating code if code is existing here. You create a module with abstract class. Okay? Remember, that was object, because it was implements. Implement requires object there, or just class. But if it is binds, it cannot go into object for internal reasons. It has to be inside of abstract class because it needs to generate implementation of it. So it is also module installed in globally, and singleton, it's one of a time. In this case, it's not implementation, it's only binding. So it will generate implementation by implementing this abstract method. What does it bind? It binds interface. User problem repository is interface. This is implementation of the interface. So binds is binding always interface and implementation of the interface. So it knows which implementation to use. It looks like dumb, why don't you use the only existing one? Because there is only one existing. but it still needs this instruction. So binds is binding implementation and interface. In the previous example, I decided to keep it simple without binds. I just call it constructor and use it, and I use it provides instead of binds. So it is extra piece of theory. And to explain it, I created a separate module for it. Okay. Questions? No? Next. Let's look into repository itself. This does not tell you how to create this object. It assumes that it exists. Okay? You need a place to describe it. In previous, it wasn't done because it was explicitly set in the module how to create it. Now it's not set. In this case, module says bind it. It means pick an existing one. Okay? Just because it's not set in the module explicitly, it must be set elsewhere. So let's see where it was set. It is set in the repository now itself. This repository is different from previous repository because previous repository was created in the module, and now it is created description in the class. Remember what I said in view model. You can use inject in front of the constructor, and it makes the object injectable. And this is it. This is the case. It doesn't have to be inject in front of the primary constructor. It has to be. It can be inject in front of some other constructor that you describe. In this case, it is this one. Okay. So in order to make an object injectable, you create constructor that you use inject in front of constructor. Either primary constructor, inject constructor here, or another constructor. But restriction is parameters must be injectable. Otherwise, it cannot create this object. DAO is injectable, so I can use this constructor to create this object. Okay. So you can create injectable object by writing inject of the constructor, but restriction is the parameter must be injectable. In this case, this stuff is not injectable. So I cannot write constructor inject. Inject constructor here. Because only this is injectable, but these are not. Okay. So why do I need it? This is just calling this constructor, you see? With parameters DAO, in which is injected, global scope, and dispatchers IO. Okay. Why do I need dispatchers separate parameter and scope separate parameter? In this case, external scope separate parameter. So this is based on not the code in the example code from Google. It's based on recommendations from Google, like good practices for repositories. So there is some file in developerandroid.com, good recommended or good practices for repositories. And there are two reasons. One, it is testing, so repository can be tested outside of, separate from the code. In this case, creating this makes sense. Second, there is sometimes we need to run task not in view model scope, but outside in global scope. So it's another reason. So this problem, this code has special case that I planted on purpose to show the issue that may haunt you or haunt you, whatever. Either way is bad, trap you, okay? Issue happens when you do database update and you go to another screen. So in this particular case, when we use local database and update of local database is quick, it's not really killing the killing issue, right? But if data is stored on cloud, this is serious issue. So where it happens? When you do here and make new problems, So what happens when I do here? I click on this button. It will do database update by creating new problems in the database and goes to next screen. So technically, it's two tasks. One is to update the database, and second task is to go to next screen. And these tasks are running concurrently. So what is the issue with that? Issue is that if it is update of the database started in view model scope, when you go to another screen, view model can, associated with previous screen, can be discarded by the system, and it will kill the task of the update in the database. So we are playing with fire in this case, and program can fail randomly, depending on which task is finished first. If update of the database finish first and go into next screen, finish it after, you will see new data, like this. If you go into next screen, finish first, updates of the database may be killed because view model is discarded. So this is potential issue. When you go to next screen and you need to finish updating of the database, because if it is started in view model scope, view model can be discarded because it is associated with previous screen. So this is potential trap. Okay? So for this reason, you need to switch scope of the task into global. So it will not be discarded when you go to next screen. So this is where global scope is necessary. In this case, it runs without it because local database update is fast. It will update it before you go to next screen. So view model is not killed immediately. But if it is updated, if it is cloud update data, this has happened to me. Okay, you go to next screen, it will kill the task of the update. So update will never happen. Okay, so for this reason, this part, what I have, just for demo, for comparison, you see, empty and insert new problems. For them in comparison, I created differently, just to show that do it in external scope because we have a switch of the screen. I need to finish the task before I go to next. I need to finish task anyway. Okay, even if what will happen if I go to next screen before update of the database? I will see for fraction of a second. I will see all data, and now I will see new data because it's coming from the flow. Okay? So it's not an issue to see all data. Issue is never see new data. Okay? Because all data will appear likely for fraction of a second, whatever. You will never see it. But issue is that if we do not run update, in this case, in external scope, potentially it will never happen because view model will be discarded at the time of the navigation, so it will discard the task, update task. Okay? So it's a demo purpose of using external scope. Okay? So this is definitely extra step of complexity, and it is created artificially for teaching purpose. Okay? I could display dialog, okay, like done, update, and now go to the next screen. But this is, since it often happens in program logic, and it can catch you. So this is the reason for external scope. If you don't run it in external scope, it will likely work because it's local database, it's quick. And in external scope here, by default, it goes, you see, I assign it global scope. See, global scope. When you use global scope, you put here a delicate coroutine API. It means acknowledgement that you know global scope, it is for special cases when you really need it. Otherwise, you use it view model scope. Okay. So this is the reason. Okay. And now, since it is stored one way and a view model displays give you different objects, I need to have a conversion. Okay. So get all user problems flow give you flow of list of user problem. But remember that DAO gives you local problems. Okay. So you do conversion with map. Map is operation on a flow. See, flow, map. This is content of the flow item. It's a list. So it's a flow of lists, right? And list is the result of the query. So what do we apply? List map. This is not operation of a flow. This is operation of a list. It's a method of a list. This will be item from the list, local problem, and I need to make user problem. So I call conversion tool user problem. But this is not coming by default. I need to define this function somewhere. You already saw class local problem. You saw that it doesn't have any functions in it. Okay? So this function is external function. External means define it outside of the class. And where it is defined, where you need it. In this case, I do need it inside of this repository. So I define it in the class, this file, repository file. To local problem. No, to user problem, right? Local problem to user problem. Local problem to user problems. This is how you define extension functions. You use name of the class, then name of the function, then definition. You use curly braces. If it is long, if it is short, you can just assign code to it, if it is one piece. So what is the code? Calling constructor. In this case, user problem. This constructor requires one parameter, and depending on storage operation sign, I need to call different constructors. So if it is stored in the database plus, you remember it was a column with a number in it. So this is how character is stored in the database by number, but it's converted automatically to character if you ask. Okay? So if it is plus, I'm creating addition problem. If it is minus, okay, blah, blah, blah. If it's none of this, it's throws exception. Okay? Conversion back is also necessary because when you store user problem in the database, you need to do call conversion back. It's a little trickier, but now I have to do when and for the type of the problem. If it is this type, I'm calling local problem with operation plus. If it is this type, local problem with operation minus. Okay? And it keeps going. And I'm storing user answer. So it is just tedious copy-paste. Okay? So this is conversion. And these conversions I use it inside of an implementation of the functions with context dispatcher, and dispatcher is dispatcher IO. Okay? So it is coroutine operations, like coroutine means it is concurrent task. Concurrent task operations are optimized by dispatchers depending on what you need to do. If it is related to input-output, it is dispatchers IO. Others also exist, okay, besides dispatchers IO, but just dealing one at a time. Okay, so this is optimization, and to switch to IO dispatcher. You can specify dispatcher directly into view model, but Google recommends it in best practices to do it inside of repository. So this is how repository is done. If you don't need to do separate constructor, you can do it inject constructor here, like it is done inside of what is called stack model, stack example, stack demo example. All right. So this is repository. Where does it go? This, you see, this link. It goes to bind repository. Here it is. Into binding. Okay. So this is where it goes, and user problem repository, where it goes to multiple places, because user problem repository is used in different view models. Okay. It is used in the problem list. It is used in view model for score. You see, score view model, problem list view model, problem details view model, and even in home view model. Why it is used in home view model? Because I need to generate new problems, right? It's also a function of repository. This is why it's done in home view model. So let's go to the home view model because it is the shortest one. So home view model. So repository goes here. And what is that? This is the first example that we encounter use case. So this is added on purpose for explaining what is use case. Some reusable task in the domain. I've wrapped it in one object. Okay? So technically, it's an object used as a function. When we look it through architecture guide, we saw use case objects in it, and this is an example of those. Okay? So it's an object that is used as a function. We will look into that. Where do I use it? Inside of init. So when home screen starts, inside of init of view model, I say repository if it's empty. First, this is suspend function, so it has to be called in coroutine scope, so it is view model launch. Okay. If repository is empty, I call repository insert user problems because it's empty. I'm inserting, and I'm calling this new quiz use case. Give me 5 problems, and it's create list. Okay. So this is an object. Use it as a function. Use case, it's an object, use it as a function. Okay. And make new problems, it's also launch, empty and insert new problems, and the same thing. So this is where I hard-coded 5. If I change it to 6, it will be 6. Okay. It should come from some kind of user settings, but I decided for now it is just hard-coded. Okay. Now, problem repository we saw, where this is coming from. In order to write inject in front of constructor, parameters must be injectable. So I made use case injectable somewhere. How did I use it? Can you guess? The same way. Write inject in front of constructor of that object. So let's see. So this is coming from, okay, this is coming from here. See, I wrote inject in front of constructor, and it made this object injectable. Okay, but it needs problem factory in order to do it. So problem factory must be injectable in order to for this inject to work. So what is inside? In order to use object as a function, it needs to contain operator function. So this will be called invoke, operator function invoke. That will be used when you call this object as a function. All right? So this is parameter of that object called as a function, a number of problems. You saw a returning list of problems. What I do, I call constructor of a list. Size, it's pre-allocation, so it is, since lists I implemented as arrays under the code, so it needs to pre-allocate array in order to stay efficient. So pre-allocate memory for this number of problems, and after this, lambda function that will be called for each item, for index. So it gives index to you, and here's lambda function you write to create an object. Okay? And this is how I create ID. You see, I'm just adding 1 to index. So ID is not auto-incremented in this problem because it's easier to do it this way. Okay? In your assignment, it's easier to auto-increment because you have delete options. Since just you have delete options for items, it's hard to keep track of it. So this simplification will not work. Do auto-increment like it is done in stack example. That has auto-increment for ID. So this is how I generated user problems by calling constructor in factory. See, factory create random problem. So factory needs to come from somewhere. Here it is. See? So I decided to create it in the module. I could do inject in front of constructor of a factory. It's one option. But OK, let's do it different way to show different way it's also possible. So I use provide, so I call exactly constructor of algebra problem factory. I could use bind, and I could use inject in front of constructor of algebra problem factory. It will also work. I'm just showing different things that there are lots of flexibilities. Okay. I could use binds, and in this case it will be abstract, but this is provides. You see there is no singleton here. Singleton guarantees that it will be only one object. It's really important if it is database related, because you don't want to deal with updates of a file from different objects at the same time. Not a good idea. But this is just in memory small object. Why not just create new one? Who cares? Okay. So this is when it is garbage collected when it's not used. Okay. When you don't write singleton on top of it, it will create duplicates. So why did they do it? Just to show that if you don't, yeah, it will create duplicates. But who cares if it's a small object? Factory is a small object. It doesn't have any data in it. It just has reference to for all other objects that are also small. Okay. So singleton really important if you deal with databases, because it's a large objects, editing files, makes sense to have it one of them. But this not really necessary. So this is how it links stuff together. Okay. Right. So first was in I explained it view model of the home screen. Okay. View model of the home screen. So where is that home screen? Factory database UI home screen. This is home screen view model. But when we open this home screen, we will realize that here it is. This is home screen. This is home view model. But it's also displaying score. You see? Since score, it is relatively separate task, and it is in multiple places, I decided to create separate view model for it, to have it reusable code and also not duplicated code in different view models for the same thing. So I created score view model. So potentially this is score state, which is state of that. Okay. And this view model doesn't have a state because this doesn't have a state. Okay. Why I have this code is in separate function from this. It is to go around of current limitation of Android Studio. There's no other reason. What is the limitation? If you have HILT view model calls inside of screen function, you cannot have preview. It just doesn't work. Okay? So the reason of separating this code in different function, it is to go around of limitation of Android Studio. Currently, how it's done. Because you cannot have preview, it's impossible. If you have HILT view model call inside of the function. But I do need preview when I work on the code. Because if you don't see it, it's working blindly, it never works. You'll have to restart your program each time when you see changes. Okay? This is just for sake of preview. So in order to have preview, I cannot have preview of that, but I want to have some screen layout preview, so I create a separate function for sake of preview. So it happens in all my screens because of using Hilt view model. It's a current limitation of Android Studio. You cannot have preview of a function when you have Hilt view model in it. Like that. And you don't have Hilt view model call here because you pass data already. Okay. So at the bottom, I have this preview. You see? And it is home screen view preview with fake data, and nothing happens on click. So just to keep it just preview of the layout. Okay. And some data for score. See? That. So this is important to know. Currently, we cannot have preview of functions that has Hilt view model calls in it. So for this reason, I create separate function to pass data and have preview. And data, what is passed in the preview, just fake. All right. So let's see what is inside of since this home view model we already saw. Let's see what is inside of score view model. Score view model contains score UI state. So what is the score UI state? Score and number of problems. So this count and this number of problems. So it needs to recalculate count because it's changing. And count is not stored in database, so it needs to be recalculated. So here it is. It needs repository to do that. So it is state of state flow, score UI state. Score UI state needs score, calculated number of problems. Number of problems is easy because it is length of the list that came to you. Score. I need to go through the list to calculate score, right? So a list, sum of, and this is item of the list. This is method of the list, sum of. This is item of the list that is returning number, okay? So I have an if. If is returning value in Kotlin. It is what you have in then and else, right? If problem status, which is right answer, wrong answer, bad input, blah, blah, blah. But if problem status is equal to right answer, it is 1. Otherwise, it's 0. So this is how it is calculating score. And it is updated automatically because it's a flow. I have operation on the flow. And flow will re-execute database query when database is updated. Okay. And this collected is in view model scope to create state flow, because this will give you just a flow. This is operation of a flow to create a flow. And state flow will collect flow in a state, or create state object. So state in, so it's not collecting, it's creating state object. So it will pull just one into container. It does pulling in view model scope. It will stay, it will keep it current for 5 seconds, otherwise it will stop doing it. And this is the initial value, because to avoid any kind of crashes, it is required initial value. Before any data comes, it will use this as a state space holder in the state. So state flow requires initialization of the state inside of it, and it will be 0, 0 before data comes. Okay? If data is delayed, it will show 0, 0 for some fraction of a second. So score is updated based on the database. Each time when you put it, it will recalculate score. It is not done with query because it requires Kotlin logic for it. if I store status in the database, it could be done with query, or in the database itself. You know that in database queries, you can do summation, right? But you cannot do summation in this case because you cannot do if there. You cannot use where something because status is not stored in database. It is calculated in Kotlin. Okay? If you want to store it, you can do it inside of database logic to calculate score. Questions? No? So let's see what else. So this is how view models are working. Home view model done. Now we have a list view model, which is very similar. Problem list UI state is just list of problems, nothing else. Problem list UI state, it is state flow, and I have a conversion to it. Similarly, because now I need to have just state of the list. And if it is empty, it is initialized. This is not necessary. It is not necessary because where is this coming from? When I was debugging it, I didn't have any home, I didn't have details. I just made sure that list is working. So at the first stage of my problem development, I just made sure that my database is initialized and I have something on the screen. So it is for that purpose only. Otherwise, it's never runs. It's only when I was typing the code, first I made sure that list shows up. Okay? And that is just inherited from that case. Otherwise, it will never run. Because it's safe, it's empty, it's created, but you reach list after home, and home is already doing it. Okay. In the most complicated view model, it is definitely details because it has all navigation and that. So let's look in that details. Details. State for all of problem UI state. Problem UI state is surprisingly simple because problem UI state, wait this. Because there's not much logic in it. It is it needs to have a score and user problem. Why it needs to have a score? As it is an inherited issue from previous code because score is not only here, it's also here. No, sorry. No, it's not here. It's not score. This is count. Why do I need score here? I'm not sure if I do. Is it displayed somewhere? Perhaps it's just extra piece of code which is not used. I think it is just survived previous versions when I didn't have it here. Okay, so this is necessary. This is probably not because square. This piece is not displaying score. This is display. Right? And I already have a UI state for this, which is separate. So this is probably can be deleted if carefully, obviously. So let's look inside of it. This is picked from the navigation system. When we navigate, it is part of the address. And get user problem by ID, and this is interesting thing on each. I'm showing this is map to data transformation. This is on each. It is pick data and do something with it. It is like a tapping into flow. Where do I use it? It is used when we go to, I want to display correct answer. So this is on each, you see, if status equal to right answer, I'm inserting that answer into user input. So it is a place where it is showing right answer. So it is like that. You see, if let's pick something, put 8, this is right answer, and this is actually inserting it. Okay, so let's go to list, click on this, you see it is inserted. So it is due to that part. When I tap it into the flow, pick the data, and if it is right answer, I put it here. Because otherwise it won't go there. I have to insert it somehow. And it is go to this variable. And it is done only when status is right answer. It will not do it for wrong answer or anything else. So it's again, it's design decision. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Okay. So this is why I say if it is not answered, it's not inserting anything. Okay. If it is, if I do something, blah blah blah, invalid input, it says invalid input and it says enter your answer. It's not showing that. So this is also feature of a flow. It's a new extra topic on it. State in, it is to convert it into state flow, and so state flow it's available for GUI, and it needs to be converted into state in order to trigger update of the screen. So now we have two triggers of the update of the screen. We have user answer input and state created from the flow. Please notice that I'm using the same logic from Google example, original Google example when it was guess a word. State is not stored in one place. In this case, state is stored in this variable and also in UI state object. This makes it simpler. When input, it is stored separate. It's not always necessary idea, but it makes it cleaner in this case, shorter. So it is triggered by two items. This one and by state created from this UI state. When I call it collect as state on this state flow object. So if I go to problem details screen, at the top you see I have user problem. User problem comes from UI state, collect as state, you see. And this is triggers update of the screen. And also, when I call user answer, where is the user answer? Somewhere. That is also triggers update of the screen. User answer. User problem. User problem. Here it is. Details you model answer, no, answer input. This is called answer input. This is triggering update of the screen. In score view model, it is separate because it is for the score, and this is score state. I don't think that the score is used from that. So it is probably just by accident. I created a variable and I didn't use it actually. Okay. And this is detail screen. How navigation is done? Navigation is done in app root screen. I created navigation host. This is for dialog state. And navigation's host, it is part which is replaced. This is also replaced because you see it is on different on the different screen. This is also different on different screens. So essentially replace entire piece. And composable, I have address home. List problems doesn't have parameters. I go to list problems. It is all generic. right? All of them. But I also have problem/problem ID. This is used when I click on it, it goes to specific problem. This address is this problem/problem ID. So when I navigate to it, like nav control navigate, problem and ID is inserted, you see? Okay? And this problem, on problem navigation click, okay, it is lambda function that will give you problem ID. It depends on what you click at. It is used here, okay? And ID is given from the GUI depending on current problem. Okay. So this is ID +1 or -1 or so. This idea is also used in home screen, but you see home screen, and navigation to problem/1 hard-coded. Because first problem, it is problem/1. So it doesn't need to be inserted. I know first problem, it is /1. Okay. This makes it easy because ID is not auto-incremented. You can do /1. If it is auto-incremented, you have to do fancier logic. Because first ID is not necessarily 1. Because if you delete it, first ID will be 2, whatever, if 1 is deleted. So if you want this in your homework, you will have to do it fancier. So don't do it, okay? Unless you have lots of time left. And you probably need to do fancier code for it. Okay. The rest of the GUI is a little just tedious, but it's not doesn't have any fancy pieces. It is just what is on the screen. I'm calling compose functions of what on the screen with icons. And in order to do it with icons, I had to add icon libraries. So that was explicitly added, icon libraries for that. Include libraries are the same as in previous example with navigation. Now it has navigation on it. So we need to look at that. So let's open Lib's version. This is, we need to synchronize in order to see it. This is just out of sync. It definitely uses this stuff. So we need to stop and synchronize project. Trust apps. And synchronize it so it stays current. It did synchronize. As this is malfunctioning, it should show not in gray. Let's try to synchronize again. Okay. This is definitely malfunctioning of Android Studio. It says gray not used, but it is used. So in order to go around, I will probably do invalidate caches because synchronized button doesn't help me. And in order to do it, it will restart Android Studio and it will fix it. So these are definitely used. What did I add? Now it is getting frozen. No, not getting frozen. Just what did I add? This is the same compose hilt KSP, right? So KSP and hilt is added. Room also added, but room is not separate plugin. But what I added, it is navigation for compose, because I'm using compose and navigation, and when you do it together, there's a library for it. And this library is not navigation library, it's navigation for compose. So let's find it where it is. See it here. Here it is, navigation compose. So this is, when we use navigation with compose, it is different library from just navigation. So when this can be added through dependency dialog. Project structure, add dependency, you can add this navigation with compose this way. Now, since we have like kind of several minutes, let's do the demo of rebuilding caches, because this is definitely what happened. It's screwed up Android Studio malfunctioned, and now synchronization doesn't work. So what helps in these cases, it is invalidate caches. You can do optional. It is definitely slower. Let's try to do without that. Invalidate and restart. Yeah, it did. Okay. If that doesn't work, you have to select everything and restart. Okay. Sometimes it happens to Android Studio. It's a reasonably good software, but it's not perfect. So we stop it at the point where I said that if we use compose with navigation, it is not regular navigation library. It is, if we use HILT with navigation, it is not regular compose navigation. It is HILT compose navigation. Other things in libraries are relatively the same. We have about 5 minutes. We can open other examples to see yeah. Let's talk about quiz, yes. Our quiz will open next week, and it will contain only information from posted slides. Only ask for information from posted slides. Which one? Basic, it is week 3. Basic element of Android API, introduction to APP structure. I already talked about this in class. It's on video from week 3, this. And I also have a separate video for it, like recorded in another section, just cut out piece. I believe I talked this in this lesson and posted it before this lesson. It is definitely in one of those videos, but I have also this video recorded separately. So I will post that video. Okay. So quiz is based only these 2 sets of slides posted in week 3. It will not contain any extra information from anywhere else, including information from video. If video contains something extra, it's not on the quiz. The way how I created the quiz, I looked through slides and made questions exactly based on slides, nothing else. Okay. So quiz will have 5 attempts. It will open next week, and it will be open through entire week. And your theoretical part of the midterm will be like given quiz, but on paper, not exactly the same questions, but from the same pool, the same logic, also true false MCQ. So this is theoretical part of your midterm. Practical part of the midterm will be problem to write, definitely a lot shorter than any assignments that you had, but it will contain navigation and view modules in it. Okay. Any questions?
The practical part will open to web?
Theoretical, not. Practical, you just use Android Studio, web, whatever. Yeah. You can use any examples that I posted. You can copy-paste from your assignment. The only restriction, you cannot use code generators, not what Android Studio just, you type it shows. It is fine, it's unavoidable. But you cannot ask explicitly with text, give me that code, blah, 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 on any code generator. You cannot ask another person to write it for you, obviously. This is cheating, the same as, yes? You can directly copy-paste from given examples, because it's definitely similar to.
Ask the AI to tell me what's wrong with the dependency, and it just gives you.
You can ask, but it's not necessarily helps you. right away because I is trained on existing code, right? And existing code could be for older Android Studio. It doesn't keep it right. You mean this AI, because Android Studio has own AI, it is this one. You mean this one, right? Yeah. This ChatGPT gives you sometimes really old answers because it doesn't keep trace to stay current. You cannot, if it is partial question, fine, but not like give me the code for that. Yeah. So it's not cheating to ask some small partial question. But if you ask me, if you generate me code for number guessing problem, whatever, in this case, definitely it's cheating. Okay.
It will be in class, right? Practical part.
Practical in class and quiz will be also in class on paper, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, 15 questions, something like that.
Quiz will be in class.
In class, but it is 20 minutes. If you finish it early, most likely you will. True, false MCQ, nobody needs 20 minutes for that. You give me a paper, you do your quiz. If you are late to exam, you will have a quiz on paper, and after this, you will have a practical part. You will have less time on practical part if you're late. But you will have all 20 minutes for your paper. Okay? If you finish earlier, you just give me earlier start practical one. So this is, I believe it is easiest, and it makes more sense because sometimes laptops getting frozen if we do quiz, and it's hard to manage such situation if it's during exam. Because once it is frozen for one student, I cannot do anything about the quiz because other students working. If it's frozen while you do multiple attempts at home, okay, you lost attempt. You have 5 of them, not big deal. Yes?
So the quiz 1 is already open today, right?
It's empty. Don't go there. It doesn't have anything in it.
Oh.
Okay. I will open it like later. It will stay open till when is the exam? Is it on Tuesday or on Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah. So I will open Saturday to Saturday. Okay. Don't go there. It's now quiz is empty. Don't go there. It doesn't have anything in it. If you already went there, it's not a big deal. I will reinitialize it. Okay. And now it is just empty. So I will just. Where is that? It is in week 5? No. Week 6? It is in week 6. I will do that. So it's not showing. Okay. So now it's hidden. Till I put something there, it is hidden.
So this one is online, right? On the computer?
Yes, it's online. It will be 5 attempts, and now it's configured for 3, but it will be 5. It will close on Saturday night of next week. So you have time to do it. It is still Saturday night of next week. Okay, you'll have 2 lessons before it's due. Okay, you will have also 2 lessons before assignment is due. So start early, so if something goes wrong, you can at least ask questions. Okay? Done for today. Now we need to finish.